It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? As we covered earlier this week, Pierre Poilievre actually, in a bold move and perhaps unprecedented for him, he criticized someone who is part of the far right and condemned some of his other conservative MPs for meeting with Christine Anderson, who is a known neo-Nazi, who is on tour or was on tour from Germany. So, as this headline suggests, Poilievre attack on folk hero Christine Anderson risks helpful support for conservative leader, says MP meeting organizer. So very strange. This is I guess the organizer of whoever made that meeting between Christine Anderson and the conservative MPs. I didn't even realize that this woman is a folk hero to the convoy crowd. So we're gonna read this together. Um, Federal conservative leader Pierre Poilievre risks losing the backing of trucker convoy supporters for criticizing a controversial German politician considered a folk hero of the movement, says one of the organizers of a lunch with a politician attended by three Tory MPs. So yeah, we did cover this in our one of our daily news updates. This is German politician Christine Anderson here in the, I don't know, Chinese looking kung fu shirt. And then second from right is conservative MPs, Colin Carey on the left, Leslyn Lewis here, and Dean Allison here on the far right. Um, there's a sense of betrayal, and we feel used by Mr. Poilievre to take the Freedom Convoy, Freedom Movement, and use them for his own benefit, Bethan Nodwell said in an interview on Thursday. Wow. I love how he's a yes man and or a yes person, and their name is Nodwell. Um, she said Poilievre has disrespected a celebrated folk hero, cherished by convoy supporters. Last week, describing Christine Anderson's views as vile and unwelcome in Canada. Trust has been lost among this voting bloc, and I say that is fantastic. And we can argue how big or how small this voting bloc is. Okay. Yeah. I mean, apparently, according to Trudeau, it's just a small fringe minority. So, I guess you can, yes, you can argue about how big or small it is. Feels like they spend a lot of time arguing how big or small things are over on the far right. Miss Anderson, a European Parliament member of the far right Alternative for Germany party, which you might as well, when you're saying far right alternative in Germany, you might as well just be saying neo Nazi party. Last week toured Canada with stops in Calgary, Hamilton, and Ontario, where she had a 3-hour lunch with the three Conservative MPs, then posed for a photo that made its way to social media, sparking criticism about the gathering. Purple Mavis here saying he actually come out and said it in any capacity? Question period, etc. I saw that there was a statement and there was an article about it. I haven't seen any video or anything like that. I haven't been watching Question Period that diligently either. Miss Anderson's party, which dates back to 2013, has espoused immigrant views and has at times trivialized the Nazi dictatorship and the Holocaust. Okay, so if you were wondering how dare I call someone a Nazi, well, this is how. They are literally like aligning themselves with the previous Nazism of Germany. Germany has done a lot of work to try to distance themselves, obviously for good reason, from that history. Ms. Anderson has opposed vaccine mandates and voiced her approval of the trucker convoy protests last year. Ms. Nodwell, who says she's concerned about mandates in the healthcare sector, was among the activists who organized Ms. Anderson's tour, financing the trip with ticket sales from the events. Okay, so Ms. Nodwell here, who's come out against Poilievre for this, was one of the activist organizers for this neo-Nazi. She said it would be helpful if Mr. Poilievre could be more specific about his objections to Miss Anderson. Yes. Yeah, Poilievre. I love seeing this, like she's like, we need Poilievre to be accountable for why exactly he's against this neo-Nazi. Also, an apology would be welcome. I would also welcome an apology over this because we could use that against Pierre Poilievre to roast him for the rest of his days. It would be nice if he apologized to those who came out and supported Christine, and he apologized to Christine herself. Yeah, do it. Mr. Poilievre, an Ottawa area MP, was an early supporter of the trucker convoy that blocked Ottawa streets, saying, I am proud of the truckers and I stand with them, in a podcast recorded in February 2022 as the protesters were settling in. I think this is something that's going to be really hard for him moving forward. And if there ever is an election, this is something that might just like eat him from the inside. We know that it's really hard to appease people, especially on the far right, right? And so once he gets on their good side, it almost is just a matter of time before he gets on their bad side, because they are kind of like an irrational movement. And which is not to say that they're the only ones. I think we're feeling a bit of that as well on the left, when people are really quick to cancel you. So I'm not saying that this is exclusively a far right or a conservative problem, but sometimes you try to get in on the good side of the wrong people, and they're really quick to turn their aggression onto you. It seems like that's what's happening to Poilievre now. It kind of is inevitable. Leading into an election, he is going to have to move towards the center, and it's going to be really interesting to watch him figure out how to do that. When the federal government invoked the Emergencies Act to deal with the situation, the Conservative leader said he supported anti-vaccine mandate protests in Ottawa, but individuals behaving unacceptably should be held accountable. Of course, you can't just outright support fascism. You'd be like, you know what? I support majority of the fascists, but there are a couple who I'm not quite fond of. Okay. During an interview on Thursday, Miss Nodwell shed some light on how the lunch came about. Hey, what's up? Good morning from the West Coast, Higsby. Welcome to our Toronto time. The three Conservative parliamentarians who met Miss Anderson are Haldimand Norfolk MP Leslyn Lewis, yada yada yada, and the Colin Carey, Dean Allison. Yes. Miss Nodwell said the lunch was organized to compare notes on how both countries handled the pandemic. Wait, so all of these far right people, like social conservatives, were meeting to talk about how the countries handled the pandemic? Like, okay. So basically they had a meeting about like fascism. They were just like trying to compare notes about how to use this health crisis, which is very real. How can they use that to satisfy their political agenda of overthrowing the liberal democracy that we live in? Asked why the three MPs were invited, Ms. Nodwell said that if Ms. Anderson is the queen of freedom for her views on the pandemic mandates, we consider Leslyn Lewis as the empress of freedom. Okay, interesting. How come the white lady gets to be the queen of the Nazis and the black woman only gets to be the empress? I have questions. Ms. Nodwell knew Mr. Allison had been open to the conversation about COVID-19 mandates, and she said she is not entirely sure why Mr. Carey was invited. Okay. It's so weird. Like, you can't sit with us. You're not fascist enough. You can't sit with us, bro. During the conversation at a Toronto area restaurant, she said the focus was on the pandemic. We didn't go into the weeds of, dangerous conversation topics. It was very social, she said. Okay, well, who knows what neo-Nazis consider a dangerous conversation topic? Their entire ideology is a dangerous conversation, in my opinion. Ms. Nodwell said Ms. Lewis, who is a critic of the World Economic Forum, spoke freely on the topic. I said, is that going to get you in trouble talking about the WEF? She said, no, I have never been criticized by the leader for anything I have talked about. Oh, wow. Okay, so you can be a conservative MP and dabble in conspiracy. Good to know. Miss Nodwell said Mr. Allison and Mr. Carey were lovely and made great conversation, with Mr. Allison talking about the impact of travel mandates in his border community. She said she sat across from Mr. Carey, but didn't have as much of an opportunity to speak to him. Okay, this is getting into way too much detail. Mr. Poilievre has said that the MPs were not fully aware of all of Miss Anderson's policies, a position the MPs themselves have also taken. Miss Nodwell said she was most in touch before and during the lunch with Miss Lewis and Mr. Allison. Neither responded to the Globe and Mail request for comment on her remarks about the lunch. Mr. Poilievre's office also did not respond. This is so weird, honestly. Like, this one far right lady is getting an entire article about her experience meeting with a Nazi, and it's kind of weird. Asked how much the MPs knew about Miss Anderson, Miss Nodwell said, "I am not inside their heads. I do not know what they know." Okay. And at the end of the lunch, she said someone suggested a photo. Everyone who was in the picture wanted to be in the picture. No one said, "Oh God, we shouldn't," or "This might be a bad move." Okay. Well, it's like, it's not only are they idiots, but they are knowingly idiots, which is what we love to see out of the Conservative Party. Lately, I've been feeling as though the Globe and Mail is very much a conservative newspaper, and they've kind of been favoring Pierre Poilievre. It is interesting, I suppose, to see this article that kind of illustrates that, highlights someone who is being very critical of Pierre Poilievre in this incident. And, we love to see it. We hope to see more of it. And I do hope that Pierre Poilievre apologizes for having the audacity to criticize a neo-Nazi who he should be more politically aligned with.